Hi guys, it's Mrs. Wright again here for Read Aloud time. And so I hope your first digital learning day went well yesterday. I know this is kind of strange and weird and I miss you guys, and just bear with it. We'll make it. Okay, so anyway, so today we are going to do Homer P. Figg, chapter 8. And we know that Homer is headed towards the big house. We're going to see what happens. And my little friend, Mr. Avocado, that Emily made for us, made for me, is going to listen attentively as I read. So here goes. Pancakes in Heaven, chapter 8. The house on the hill gets bigger and bigger the closer I get. There are puffy white clouds reflected in the windows, and the clouds are moving against the sky. And that makes it look like the whole house is moving too. It's like I can feel the earth turning, and I have to be careful where I put my feet. The whole thing makes me so dizzy that the gentle green hills seem to get steeper and steeper, and finally it tips up and I'm face down in the grass. Fainted from the lack of food. All that talk about biscuits and butter and honey, it must have reminded my stomach that it hasn't had food since I wolfed down that slop intended for Squint's hog and started this whole terrible business of Harold getting sold to the army. Soft, soft grass, better than a pillow, makes me forget I'm hungry, makes me forget everything. Next thing, I'm floating. No, not floating. I'm being carried, and there are gentle murmuring voices that sound like running water. And then I'm in a warm place, and somebody is holding a cup to my lips and telling me to drink. Just a small sip, the voice says. And for a moment, I think it's our dear mother, and I wake up and see big gray eyes studying me. Big gray eyes and rosy red cheeks and a helmet of fine white hair. Turkey broth, she says, good for what ails you. The woman with the gray eyes helps me sit up. She holds the cup while I sip the broth. Nothing ever tasted so good or made me feel so warm inside and safe and alive. Do you know where you are? She asks. Big house, I say. The Brewster house, she explains, and I'm Mrs. Bean. Brewster Bean, my tongue says. I'm the cook hereabouts, she gently explains, and when they find a starving boy in the front yard, it's only natural that they bring him to me. Mrs. Bean takes an empty cup and says, there's more where that came from when I'm ready. She folds her plump arms and looks at me kind of sideways as if she's trying to get inside my head. Are you simple, dear, or is it hunger that makes you ramble? I take a deep breath and try to clear my head. Then I tell her who I am, like Smelt suggests, and that I'm looking for my brother and that my horse got stolen, and I leave out where I come from exactly so nobody can call for Squint and Leach to come get me. Seems like Mrs. Bean believes most of it because she starts nodding and saying, oh dear, and I decide it's time to shed a tear or two for my lost brother to really make her believe me. And the next thing I know, she's hugging me and patting me on the head and promising that Mr. Brewster will find Harold. When Mr. Jebediah Brewster sets his mind to something, watch out, she declares, dusting her white apron. Mr. Brewster will be back later and you'll tell him what you told me. Orphan boy searching for his brother. That'll get his attention. Meantime, Mrs. Bean makes it her mission to fill my belly. She asks would I rather have a plate of meat and gravy or pancakes and bacon. I go for the pancakes while the bacon is sizzling in the big iron frying pan, the kind old dear mother called a spider. I sit next to her and sit next to the stove and watch because Mrs. Bean, she is something to see, the way her plump hands fly around the room like pale white birds, bringing things out of the cupboard and jars and larder boxes. Can't help but notice your lack of shoes, she says, stirring flour into the blue mixing bowl. Did you lose them along the way? Figure there's been enough truth for one day, so I say. Yes, ma'am. Lovely pair of boots made from the skin of a timber rattler. A rattlesnake? Oh my. Yes, ma'am. Snake had me cornered when Harold wrestled him to death. Snake tried to spit in his eye and blind him, but Harold was too quick. Broke his neck with one flick of the wrist. Amazing, she said. A snake with a neck. Must have been 30 feet long. Mrs. Bean nods. A little puff of flour comes up from the bowl, and then your brother skinned the snake to make you boots? Is that what you're telling me? I thought about that. and decided modification was in order. Not exactly. Fact is, Harold did skin the beast, but I made the boots myself, had a matching belt too. They took everything. The thieves that stole your horse? What did you call that horse now? King something or other? Oh, Prince Bob. Bob's a thoroughbred racehorse, 3 years old and faster than a bee sting. Remarkable, says Mrs. Bean. And where was it that you came from? Oh, up north, I say vaguely. Little no-account place. Yes, but it must have a name, mustn't it? Every place has a name, no matter how small. Smelt, I tell her in a moment of inspiration. Excuse me? Smelt, that's what they call it, on account of the swamp nearby. I'm congratulating myself for not calling it stink. Stink would be too much to believe, but smelt is subtle. Smelt is rarefied. Never heard of smelt, Miss Bean allows, fixing her calm gray eyes on me. Thought I knew every village in the state of Maine, at least by name, but I've never heard of smelt. I almost say that Smelt has never heard of her either, but I think better of it. Nothing like the prospect of pancakes to make you smart-mouthed and sassy. Mouth shut, I take the time to survey Mrs. Bean's magnificent kitchen. The room is bigger than Squint's whole house, with a fry stove and a bake stove and a full fireplace and a Dutch oven. Pantry has more canned goods than the general store in Pine Swamp, and there are 3 different slate sinks, one for washing dishes and one for rinsing vegetables and one just for the heck of it, I guess. Loads of cupboards with glass fronts, copper pots of every size, rock maple countertops, a butter urn that Miss Bean says belongs in a museum, and drawers. There are big drawers and little drawers and bread drawers and knife drawers and linen drawers and drawers for extra things left over. Mrs. Bean suggests that I stop opening and closing drawers and sit down to pancakes and bacon. She pulls out the chairs and scoots me up to the kitchen table. There, on a white china plate, is a pile of pancakes I have only ever dreamed about because Swinton never gave us more than stale bread and sour molasses. Pancakes slathered in yellow butter, steaming pancakes drowned in warm maple syrup. Figure smelt must have killed me for sure and I've woken up in heaven. Or maybe I'm still hungry and I can't think straight. Then I decide that as good as the pancakes taste, this can't be heaven because there aren't any clouds or golden harps or angels with wispy wings. And God would be here too, wouldn't he? If this was really heaven. That's when he comes in from the parlor, dressed all in black. God himself. Hopefully you can figure out who God himself is, or at least who Homer P. Figg says it is. So we will be back. I will be back tomorrow. I miss you. Y'all have a great day. Do your work. Don't give your parents a hard time. And get outside and get some fresh air. Till tomorrow. Bye.